Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for moving to a new world for payments with ISO for 2022. This is the new Progress MarkLogic webinar. Joining us today, along with myself, Senior Customer Success Manager here at Progress, will be David Carrott, who is a experienced MarkLogic Senior Sales Engineer in Progress. Today, we're going to be talking about the current sort of financial landscape and how that's due to change and with the introduction of the new ISO standard. Certainly Swift cross-border payments reporting, which began in 2023 and will end in November 2025. And the messaging and how the format of that messaging is going to be changing soon. And it's moving away from the legacy formats into the new ISO 20022 format. So, I mean, this just gives you an idea of some of the numbers that we're talking about, the scale of the problem that some of these financial institutions are dealing with today. You know, over 44 million average number of Swift Fin messages sent per day, over 11 billion in the year of 2022. And it kind of speaks to a trend in how payments are evolving kind of in all aspects of financial services, and having the right tools in place to be able to address those. You know, we can talk about the ISO 2022 in a minute, but you're also looking at things like a cashless society. You know, less and less people are using cash these days. It's said that by 2043, the UK will become a cashless society if the government continues to go down the same sort of legislative road that it's going down now. Same is in the US. You know, there are trends now in the US where they're seeing a decrease of 6% annually in terms of the number of cash payments made. Now less than 20% of transactions in the US, according to the Federal Reserve, are cash payments. So it's a really interesting space. It's a really interesting topic. I hope that today David can share with you some of the learnings that we've had dealing with some of our customers with this new standard. And if you've got any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put that into the chat. We'll have a Q&A at the end. We'll try and get to as many questions as we possibly can. If we don't get to your question, don't worry. We'll make sure to reach out to you after the event and get you any of the information that you require. David, I'll hand over to you.
So my name is David Carrott. I'm here to talk about ISO 20022, the new standard for payments processing. Today, we'll go over its benefits and challenges and how MarkLogic can improve time to market for payments projects. So what are we going to cover? We'll start with a quick overview of what ISO 20022 is and what it means to the financial services industry. As part of that, we'll cover its benefits. Then we'll move on to building an ISO 20022 infrastructure. This includes how MarkLogic can help, along with what is involved just beyond the messages themselves. We'll end the session with a review and a demo of the MarkLogic Accelerator for payments. This encapsulates our capabilities and experiences working with ISO 20022 and how it can help with your implementations. This is probably what most of you really want to see, so stay to the end. So let's get started. What does ISO 20022 mean? So it's really important. ISO 20022 is transforming the payments landscape. It standardized payments messaging, it enhances data quality, and it eases the governance of payments messages. Legacy standards have a number of issues, the most important of which are not including important information, inconsistent modeling, and overuse of unstructured data. With ISO 20022, users will have more data to work with and a rigorous message structure. This will help in a number of different ways. With enhanced data and improved data structures, areas like payment failure analysis, analytics, the implementation of sanctions, fraud detection, and general compliance processes should be simplified and made a lot easier. This provides the opportunity to make payments processing more efficient, increase automation, and improve analysis of payment flows. Unlike legacy standards, ISO 20022 is XML-based. The use of XML allows a high degree of rigor in creating data models because the data is fully described and immediately useful. An important consideration when picking a platform for processing and accessing ISO messages is that many major data platforms do not natively store XML, instead using relational, JSON, and key value approaches. This means that to store ISO messages in those platforms, you have to convert the original messages to another format. The same process in reverse is required to generate XML messages from data in the platform. This can be a difficult task and can mean storing multiple copies of the data. Handling ISO messages is only part of the picture. Processing payments and doing analytics against payments data requires integrating that data with data coming from a lot of other sources. On the analysis and analytics fronts, to fully analyze payments data, it may be necessary to combine data from relational, JSON, semantic, and unstructured data to go along with the ISO messages. With most data platforms, each of these data types is stored in a separate technology and data silo. Processing of the data is done separately as well. The worst part of this is that application teams are responsible for integrating all of that. All of that means it's difficult to develop applications which take full advantage of ISO 20022. Projects often restrict functionality because they lack the expertise to handle all the needed skills. So where does MarkLogic fit into this picture? So we'll start with just talking about what MarkLogic is before ISO 20022. But at a high level, MarkLogic's goal is to simplify complex data. A core part of this is MarkLogic's Data Hub platform. The Data Hub platform allows users to load all kinds of data. This includes relational, unstructured, semantic, XML, and JSON. It uses the data to create a single store for all of the data. MarkLogic provides tools to define data models, transformations of incoming data, deduplicates data, and a lot of other things. Underlying the Data Hub, MarkLogic provides a powerful multi-model database. The database has extensive search capabilities and a variety of integration tools. All of these can be used both as part of a formal data hub as well as for non-data hub uses. So when MarkLogic was first created, it was focused on XML, and its XML abilities are really first class. Users can load and query XML data without any pre-processing, and MarkLogic fully understands XML concepts like XML namespaces. This is essential to effectively using ISO messages. So those messages can be stored directly into MarkLogic alongside all your other data, and then you can query that data as a single whole, whether you need to use relational, JSON, RDF, or other data alongside of your ISO messages. And MarkLogic has extensive data access capabilities. To start, MarkLogic's universal index, when you use it, as soon as the data is loaded, it's immediately available for structured queries. So queries can be done even before you've done any data modeling or any kind of ETL. MarkLogic includes a world-class search engine. A lot of important information providers in areas like legal and financial services, physics, and many others have built their sites on top of MarkLogic because of the power it provides. Faceting, stemming are all there to help users explore very large data sets and find the information they need. MarkLogic's data modeling capabilities make it easy to expose complex XML like ISO payments as SQL views, allowing for easy analytics with tools like Tableau, Click, and Python. A critical use for ISO payments messages is performing analytics against them. Doing this, especially in a near real-time basis, can be difficult because of the need to translate the hierarchical XML messages to something common analytics tools can use. And we solve that problem. So to repeat myself a little bit, MarkLogic is a multi-model data platform where all kinds of data are stored in a single place and accessed as a unified whole. All of the different kinds of data can be queried in a single query. Ontologies allow firms to embed their knowledge about the firms and the industries they work. With ontologies, MarkLogic becomes a smart database, and users can use this knowledge to guide and enhance their users' queries and searches. MarkLogic's fact extraction allows application to take unstructured text like PDF or Word documents and extract explicit facts from them. Once this has been done, extracted facts can be modeled and exposed as SQL or queried with its other data approaches. So to summarize the overall take on MarkLogic, using MarkLogic as part of your ISO payments processing or analytics implementation offers a lot of benefits. Time to market is the key benefit, and that's the reason people use us. Beyond this, using MarkLogic can help with your reporting, data quality, security, and the visibility of your payments data. All of this can be achieved with a platform which enables flexibility and the ability to adapt to change. So beyond our general capabilities, MarkLogic has been leveraging our experience working with customers in the payment space to help speed payment implementations. We're offering the results of this as the MarkLogic ISO 20022 Accelerator for payments. The accelerator can be broken into two areas: code samples showing how to perform functionality against ISO 20022 messages, and a UI to allow users to easily search and query large sets of payments messages. The accelerator is usable for both transactions and analytics. The accelerator provides code samples, SQL views of payment data, and a sample Tableau dashboard, and there's more coming on the way. Message discovery allows you to load ISO messages and query them with no development or custom processing of the messages. It's easily extendable, allowing you to customize the look and feel just by making configuration changes. It provides the ability to save results and queries. The code samples are implemented as XQuery, JavaScript, and Java. They encapsulate common payment needs at both the database and business level. The Java samples offers a JUnit test environment which verifies the samples are working correctly and can act as a training resource. All of this is meant to be easily extendable. So let's take a look at the accelerator in action. So this is the UI for message discovery. So the key points about this are we give it to you, you can load your data into it, and you don't have to do anything to make it functional. This comes out of the box. You can immediately start doing your message discovery. And the only thing you're going to want to really play around with is these facets up and down on the side that you're going to probably want different ones than have been picked here. And so that's pretty easy to do, and we'll provide you with instructions for how to do that and to make it work. And so now let's do a few samples of how this works. There's a lot of data in the system. And so let's do a search on a business service. This is just a test one here. Now we very quickly find all the things that have this term in it. And then we can narrow our search down on just those things with a member ID of 10,007. We can come in here and look at it. And so there's our member ID 007. Here's the business service of that. So, and so this is what the ISO message looks like. So all of this just comes in. You don't have to do any work with other products. A lot of products don't support XML, so you're going to have to translate the XML incoming to JSON or key value pairs or to some kind of SQL view, and you're not going to be able to do any kind of easy message discovery. So this is your starting point, and this functionality is easy to implement. We'll show it to you in a second, but this is all there, easy to work with. And then we also provide the code sample. So we provide them server side with MarkLogic. And so what we've done is implemented a lot of functionality that you would need to use in building your ISO project. And so one is, this is showing, for example, how you build a SQL view in MarkLogic. There's multiple ways, but then this defines the SQL view that we'll be doing a lot of. This is actually running SQL queries against it. And then we're also showing how to do different kinds of queries in both JavaScript and XQuery. And so we include XQuery because XQuery is the programming language developed for XML. And so it's if you really want to get into your XML and you have the skill set, then this is by far the fastest way. Doing it in JavaScript, MarkLogic fully supports. So this is all accessing the same data, whether you're doing this, accessing the data from Java or XQuery or JavaScript, it's all going against the exact same data, and it's up to you how you want to do it. But then there's just different ways of querying the system and finding out what to do. So this is doing queries on specific dates, so everything 2023, 11/11, 9/06/01, and then this is showing everything that's happened before that. And so there's a lot of things. How do you find an individual document? How do you perform a search using MarkLogic, giving all the capabilities? So we have a very powerful search engine that gives you all the confidences of everything else and for every document that met the search, and some technical things down here. How do you do a universal index search that we mentioned before? So if you have the attribute head mem ID, and this is one of the things where the XML ability, because this is getting into the XML namespace part, but so you can do these kind of searches and get the results you want. So we have that. And then we also have a Java implementation. So in Java, we've defined a set of interfaces of things you would need to do, common functionality, like how do you bulk load your data? And then we've also defined implementation of all those classes. So here's the implementation of how you run this. And so this, we're constantly expanding that. And as we work with more firms, we want the firms to give us the specs of what they want, and we're willing to put the skin in the game and help implement this out, so that the idea is that this accelerator becomes more and more powerful, and you can leverage the work that we've done and not have to reinvent the wheel for everything. And then we also have a JUnit implementation, so that all of the functions that are defined in that other set, you can run a complete set of tests against them. And the key part of this also acts as a training environment. So it sets up what you need to do, call the function, you call the function, and then it verifies the function actually worked. So you can run that, and you can just run all your tests. And then this shows you which tests succeeded and which ones didn't. And you get a lot of data out there as you go along. So like this one failed because it couldn't find something. And so now you can easily extend this, and basically your production system can be written. You build out all your functions, you run complete tests, it's all there, you can find them, and then you put them together as you please to make your system run. And so again, we've done a fair amount of work, but this will be growing and becoming more powerful as we get information from our users about what they want in the system. So please feel free to let us know. And then to end the demo, if we come here, we had shown you how to create these SQL views of the data. And then here we're using those SQL views. So if you go to Tableau, over here, you make a connection to MarkLogic. And then now that SQL view, you just, that you saw what the message looked like, or maybe you didn't see what the message looked like. The actual messages look like this. Oh, you did see this. And then we've created SQL views that flatten that and turn it into something that's, a grid that SQL can use. And so the data is here. And then we've created a set of dashboard items and then combine them all into this. And so now this is real time. It's however you set up your Tableau implementation to call it. And the SQL view is real time. Every time you make a SQL call, it represents the current state of the database. And MarkLogic is ACID, and part of the ACID guarantee is that the SQL view is updated before the transaction. Every time you do an insert into the database, the SQL view is updated before that transaction completes, even though you're inserting the XML data here. But so you can define all of these different elements in your dashboard. You can combine it with your other data and then have these things updating in real time. And again, because we are one of the best XML platforms out there, with any other system, almost any other system, you're going to be translating it into something else and then querying it. So there's always going to be a lag. You're not going to have things completely up to date. With us, the data is immediately there, and this can be extended to incorporate all of your other data sources so that your dashboard will have everything in it, whether that involves semantic data or relational data, which is going to be the big one there. So that was the demo. And so just to start wrapping things up here, MarkLogic is the primary data platform with native XML support. When MarkLogic was first introduced, it was actually first implemented with XML and XQuery before we had any other languages. And that is the query language for XML. So with MarkLogic, there's no need to convert your ISO messages to anything else. You can just use them out of the box, and you can combine we've added everything else since then. So we do fully support relational and JSON and RDF and free text. All of that can be brought in there. We can convert your PDFs and your Word documents. All of it can be brought into one place and made accessible as a single data store, especially when you use it with our Accelerator. You can develop your applications far easier and more reliability than you can without us. And that's it.
Well, David, thank you very much for that. It was a really interesting session, really interesting approach. I love the fact that we pre-packaged a lot of that code, especially on the XQuery side, because I know sometimes people are a little bit afraid of XQuery. They're not too sure on the language if they've not used it before, especially. It's great to see we've got the parity between the JavaScript and the XQuery as well built into that ISO application there or the view that you've got there. So yeah, really interesting. We've got some questions already coming in the chat, and first one is, what kind of analysis and analytics can be done with a database of ISO messages?
Yeah, so this is actually a really important part of the new standard. So the old standard lacked a lot of information, and a lot of the information that was in there was free text and wasn't formatted. So it was really hard to do analysis and analytics. And so the biggest one is probably payment failure analysis, that when you're sending data overseas, a single payment might require 7 or 8 different hops. If something fails on any one of those hops, it's very expensive to fix it and to solve it. And with the old standard, failure analysis was painful and hard. And with the new standard, it becomes really easy, especially with MarkLogic. And then other kind of things that become much more MarkLogic specific. So you can do cross-selling. Now that you have this rich ISO structure in here, you can load your other data about your customers in there and figure out how you can help them upgrade, how you can help them cross-sell. And something we found is firms want to be valued advisors to their customers. That if you're a bank selling to a corporate, you don't want to just compete on price, because that's, a really dead end thing. You want your customers to view you as being somebody who can help them in ways that you can give them advice. So you can help them minimize costs, how to minimize the amount of capital that, when you're doing these payments, you have to keep capital set aside. Well, the bank has to do that, but also sometimes some of your customers have to do that. And also just tracking daily activity. That's where the dashboard comes in. That the biggest use for these kind of dashboards is to just keep track of what happened that day, how many transactions have we initiated, how many have completed, all of that, and having a really up-to-date dashboard becomes important.
Yeah, so this kind of goes to a question that someone's come in. So I'm going a little bit out of order that they're coming in, but it's to say that, so once implemented, then rather than being a point solution like an endpoint, this could form a part of a wider use of the MarkLogic technology. So for whether it be for payment analytics or maybe a compliance solution, that type of thing.
Yes, fraud analysis and all of those things are things that MarkLogic can really help you with.
And you spoke, again, I'm going to ask this a little bit out of time, but you spoke about MarkLogic being used in financial services in places like banks and insurance companies. What's the typical use cases that we've been used for?
Yeah, so we have a lot of trade stores that are built on top of us. And that's especially important if you're going beyond just something really simple like FX or equities, where the structure is extremely simple. But as you start handling multiple kinds of instruments and the data starts becoming more complex, then quite a few banks have built trade stores on top of us. And we are used for things, a lot of compliance goals. And a lot of people use us to do analytics and to make data available to their internally or to their customers.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that because we're multi-model, that we can take the data in as is. There's also a case for sort of document use cases in there. So for stuff like, I'm guessing, like contract information or mortgages.
Yes, yeah. We go far beyond just the pure relational model.
Yeah. And I guess there's probably a consideration then with all those use cases. What kind of security does MarkLogic provide for the data?
Yeah, so MarkLogic security is best of class. MarkLogic was actually created, our first customers were intelligence agencies, and so our security has been built into us from the beginning. So a number of competitors, especially the newer competitors, started as open source, where you build something cool and people download it, and then when it takes off, then you add the security, and that's really hard. And so we, version 1, had first-class security. So we have all role-based security. We do compartment security, where you need things that go beyond what where you have ands and or. Usually security is you're just making it narrower and narrower by anding it. And then compartment security is it's like this or this. And then we support that. Everything is encrypted, whether it's in flight or on disk. We'll integrate with your LDAPs and everything else. So it's all there. And we can even get down to element level security. So you can say, I want people to be able to see the message, but not the deal size. Or you can hide individual fields if they need faked it, not just hide the fact that it exists, but you can make up dummy numbers so that, like if you don't want to share a social security number, we'll make up social security numbers so you can still link tables together, do analytics, but you're not exposing your customer data.
Got it. So it's a security by default kind of approach to that. Yeah, great. Another one coming in there, there are some sort of hard deadlines for the switchover. Now, I know that there's quite a lot of European countries that have already kind of met this or are meeting this. But, are you confident to say if a customer approached us today, said, look, I've got a project, this budget's going to be signed off in 3 months, we might have another 3-month delay, let's say 6 months. Are you confident that we'd meet the deadline for that switchover?
Yeah, well, so how long your implementation takes obviously depends on how much work you need to do. So if your immediate goal, now some deadlines have already passed, we can't help you meet the bare bones. But if all you want to do is bare bones, then that will be fairly quick because you know how to do exactly that. All you have to do is figure out how to extract the specific elements you need to get a transaction and send it off to the next hop. And we'll make that easier, but that's where we really start to shine is when you start taking advantage of the new capabilities, because the ISO is offering so much more data, so much more structure, but it's doing it in a way that most people are not really comfortable or familiar working with, the XML approach. So we can really speed those things up and make those projects run much, much, much faster. And so if your project actually involves doing more than just receiving a payment and sending it off, then you really want to come to us, but we'll help you with that first step too. And you should have one platform for everything. So
yeah, and I guess that's where that accelerator comes in, and those prepackaged views, the queries that you've got in there, that they're really going to help people accelerate their projects. So yeah, that's great to see. And are we focused? I mean, I guess we kind of answered this, but let's cover it anyway. Are we focused on the transaction processing, or is it analytics?
Yeah. So MarkLogic can absolutely do transaction processing. So the most notable example we have is healthcare.gov in the United States. What's called Obamacare is built on top of MarkLogic, and so over 10% of Americans get their healthcare policies through MarkLogic, so we can handle very, very large scale, and that's also XML data, by the way. And so we can handle these very large transactional projects. Now, having said that, a very large percentage of our revenue comes from analytics projects, because a lot of what we do is we bring in data from a variety of sources and create a single store for it so that you can do data discovery, analysis, and processing of that. So you certainly can do just the transaction processing. That is only using a subset, just to replicate what you were doing with, say, Swift MT or something like that, only requires a small subset of the capabilities of the new standard, because the whole point of the new standard is to let you do things you could never do before. And so that's where we're sort of at here.
It should definitely be a starting point, the processing, but it shouldn't be the end point of a project like this then.
Yep.
Great. I can't see anything else, but if we haven't got to your questions, then please feel free to let us know. One thing I would say that David kind of covered in the thing, we're always open to ideas. We're always open to new things, and we've just launched a Progress data platform ideas portal where you can submit your ideas. So if you are going to be a future customer of this and want to see a feature built into it before considering it, or you're a customer already of MarkLogic and you want a feature built into the platform, then it's a great place to put stuff into there. It goes to our product management team, it goes to our engineering team, and ideas are already being submitted for future consideration. So it's definitely worth doing that. I'll put the link in the chat for you if you want to follow that through. David, it's been great to chat with you today.
Thank you.
I'd like to, before we close, just throw up your contact details again, just to make sure that we can get this to people. So if you've got any questions for David that weren't covered today, then please do feel free to reach out, david.carrot@progress.com. I'm sure he'll be able to answer them. Make them really hard questions. If he can't answer them, then you certainly know someone who can, but give him some thinkers there. If you've got any more information, if you want any more information, then please feel free to visit our website, progress.com. We've got an AI roundtable that's coming up that I think is going to be very interesting on the 7th of March. So please feel free to join us there as well. David, thank you very much for your time today. Great to speak to you.
And if you contact me, be sure to mention ISO in the subject, because otherwise it might get sent away to spam and I'll never see it.
Yeah, no, definitely. ISO 20022 in the subject title will definitely help filter those messages and make sure they get to the right people. David, it looks like we're running out of time, but thank you very much for today. If we haven't got to your questions, then we'll make sure to follow up with you after the webinar.